Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you enjoyed hearing two of our nation's leading politicians in the sessions this morning and just their commitments to charter schools and putting kids first. I'm really excited to have you join us today. My name is Bill Kurtz, and I am the CEO of DSST Public Schools in Denver, Colorado, and we're really excited to have you. We have an amazing panel today and group of leaders who are going to share on this really important topic of reopening schools in a time of uncertainty and how we do this. And I know this is on so many people's minds, and it is an incredibly difficult challenge. We hope we will add some insight and wisdom for you this afternoon. I will introduce our panelists, and we're going to spend a little time doing that because we want to get to the conversation, and I think you have their bios, so please feel free to pull those up as we are talking. So we have today Sean Hardnett, who is the founder and CEO of Statesman's College Preparatory Academy for Boys Public Charter School in Washington. We have Emilio Pack, CEO of STEM Preparatory Schools in California, and we have Diane Tavner, co-founder and CEO of Summit Public Schools in California and Washington and across the country. And we're so excited to have them here today. What an amazing group of leaders. I know you are going to learn a lot from them. So let's try to set the stage here and jump right into the conversation. I will have all three of the panelists kind of address this conversation so we can get some context and understand kind of where they are and how they're situated. And I'll be starting with Sean and then going to Diane and Emilio. But the questions I want us to start with are just to have each one of the leaders share kind of what is the current context, health, and safety in their geographies that they're leading in. And then based on that, as they've thought with their organization, what are the key non-negotiables that for their planning this year? Thirdly, quickly, how have they approached planning? And fourth, what is their current status? Are they opening remote? Are they trying to open in person? So those are the four questions that we want them to help kind of set the stage for this conversation and give us context. And so with that, Sean, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Well, let me start by saying thank you to everyone who has joined us and appreciate the opportunity to talk about what we're doing. Again, I'm Sean Hardnett. I'm the founder and CEO for Statesman College Preparatory Academy for Boys here in your nation's capital. And with regards to context, we are in a city where we are seeing some unfortunate shifts in COVID-19 and coronavirus and how it is running across the community. We have seen a spike in cases recently, and that has had a significant impact on planning. We have we have an ecosystem of school choice in Washington, D.C., a phenomenal ecosystem of school choice. And so about half of kids in the city attend charter schools, about half attend traditional schools. Unfortunately, things have changed so much. The guidance that we've gotten has changed so much. And literally, the mayor announced today, less than an hour ago, that we are going to be starting the school year all virtual, and announced some plans that the traditional schools will be using. And so we will now be taking the next 7 days to finalize and submit a plan that is all virtual from now until about November 6th. As an LEA, we will likely make the decision to go out to the Thanksgiving break and use the Thanksgiving break as an opportunity to determine whether or not we should come back in person. For us, we have had a set of non-negotiables around this, and one is this: we are in crisis, and we are crisis planning. We are not trying to take Statesman College Preparatory Academy for Boys and the public charter program that we designed and make that a digital online program. It is not a virtual program. It is a relationship-based, person-to-person, high-contact program with the young men who we serve, as the interviews that we did with young men informed us that it needed to be. And so we have had 3 major foci. Absolutely build and maintain relationships, mitigate losses to reading, and mitigate losses to math. That's it. Our kids were online with us from 9:45 until 2:45 every day. We had 97% in-seat attendance for all of our COVID classes for all of spring, and they have also been 6 weeks or 5 weeks of summer programming with us as well through the NSSI initiative. And we are going to be taking that initiative and moving that into the fall program and extending the day so that it's a little bit longer. But that's been our focus: maintain relationships, because that's so important to us. So at least a third of their day is spent on relational activities, and then some time on mitigating losses to reading, causing growth if we can, mitigating loss to math, causing growth if we can, and maintaining the emotional state, the mental health of the adults, including the parents and the teachers who are doing this work. That has been what we have been thinking most about as we've been conducting the plan. So now that we have this finalized decision, we're pretty sure this is final because of the number of days that it would take to shift that plan. We're going to move forward with that.
Diane.
Thanks, Bill, and thanks, Sean. It's great to be here with all of you. So much of what Sean shared is resonant with me, and so let me see if I can be additive on that front. I have the pleasure of leading Summit Public Schools. We have 14 schools in California and Washington State. We serve grades 6 through 12, and the health status, we're in the geography of the two initial hotspots of the coronavirus in the U.S., so in the Bay Area as well as in the Seattle area and the Washington area. So our schools' buildings closed March 17th and have been closed since. And we will enter this school year with the buildings closed, given where these two geographies still continue to be with regards to the health and safety guidance that we have. We've known for about a couple of weeks that we would start completely virtual for the year, and so have been planning accordingly. In terms of what is most important to us and what our non-negotiables are and our values and what we hold dear, that has not changed from March. And so we start with, we have a whole child, whole human approach to things. Our model is very grounded in the science of human development and learning science. And so we care very deeply about relationships, like Sean said, and developing not only the academic, the cognitive skills and the knowledge of our students, but also their habits of success. And we are 100% focused on making sure every one of our students graduates accepted to at least one four-year college and with a concrete next step that really aligns with who they are. When COVID hit, those things became non-negotiables for us. We were unwilling to say that our students would experience any loss. And so we committed to making sure that we would translate their experience, the in-building experience, to the virtual world. I think one of the key things we did is we've never called it distance learning. We don't want to have any distance from our students, and we've worked really hard to not have any relational distance from them or distance from who we are and what we care about. So we call it virtual school. And our focus has been on 4 key things. One, we have to make sure our students attend. We can't work with them if they're not in contact and attending. 2, that they're able to engage productively and effectively in learning and community. 3, that they are learning, that they continue to learn and continue to learn at the same expectations that we had previously. And 4, that they grow, and grow being in their habits of success and all of the character traits and the social emotional development that we want for them. We have taken an approach to this year that is maybe a little bit different from a lot of people. We assume that this year is going to be an entire year of uncertainty, and we think it's highly likely we won't be in our buildings for the year. And so we have committed to of doing virtual school, even if our buildings open back up. And we really see the buildings probably as being more like workspaces this year than classrooms. So if they do open back up, We imagine we probably won't have all of our students there. We know some of our families will definitely not return this year. And so it will be more like a workspace where our kids would still engage in the virtual school experience, so that we can maintain consistency throughout the year and plan for and know what we're getting ready for. We've taken a phased approach. So we've broken the year down into phases, and we'll be making decisions basically on a 2-week at the beginning and then monthly basis about what will happen, so families can plan ahead and teachers can plan ahead. And that's how we are approaching the year.
Thanks, Diane. And just before I get to Emilio, just want everybody to know that you can certainly ask questions, and we will be taking 15 minutes at the end of the session to do some Q&A. So please feel free to put your questions in the Q&A. And Emilio.
It's a pleasure being here with this esteemed panel. Really happy to be here. So I'm in Los Angeles. So we have 3 schools, STEM prep schools. We have an elementary, a middle, and a high school, all in South Los Angeles. Student population is 100% Black, African American, Latinx. And as our name implies, STEM prep, our focus is on STEM. Our success is based on how many of our students can go on and disrupt the status quo for what the face of the STEM professional looks like. So as many of our students become STEM professionals, that's how we measure success. That also is our non-negotiable. The context in Los Angeles, like most large urban cities, is a dire one. So right now, we could not open hybrid or in person, even if we wanted to, because the governor has put some conditions in where you have to get off the watch list by county. Then each county can do a phase of opening. So that's where we are. Again, our non-negotiable, we are a STEM school. And that is not easy to do virtually because a lot of our STEM classes are based on collaboration, on working on projects, on physically sharing tools in engineering, doing dissections in biomedicine. So what we've done is to put a stake in the ground and say we're not going to back off of STEM education, but the way we're going to do it is a slight pivot and expand our computer science program. Computer science courses lend themselves well to virtual learning. It's an area that we wanted to grow, so we're going to do more investment in computer science. The other possible opportunity is that it is difficult for our students to get internships and apprenticeships in a normal world without the pandemic because of a variety of reasons, transportation liabilities. However, we're finding that doing a virtual internship is a possibility that some of our engineering firms, our aerospace industry is open to. So trying to find the possibilities within the crisis that we're facing. Our approach to opening has been one where we work diligently on what a hybrid program would look like. And that took a lot of time and effort, only to find out that that's not going to happen and we're opening virtually. So the good thing is that our facilities are ready to reopen. We have a strong hybrid plan when and if we can open, and we're going to look at that in 5-week phases. So we're committed to not shipping without going through a 5-week phase where we will do distance learning for 3 weeks, make a decision at the end of the 3rd week to go to hybrid in 2 weeks. So then we have a 2-week transition to let teachers know, to let families know, so that we're ready and have everything we need to open. And that's how we're looking at it for now.
Thank you all. Let me go with a follow-up question, since we all are remote and we are also going to be opening virtually and remote as well. I'd be curious to know, what are your thoughts around how to build the deep student relationships that all of you mentioned is core to your culture and to your learning? And how are you grappling with the fact that you're going to have new students entering your communities who haven't experienced your community in person? Last year, we went remote after 6.5 months of being in community, which I think made it a little easier. This year, you're going to have a lot of new students who don't know what it means to be a part of STEM Prep or Summit. And so how are you thinking about how to build those meaningful relationships virtually with students, which I think we know is the energy of our communities and of our learning. So let's start with you, Diane, on that, and then we'll go to Sean and then Emilio, and I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Thanks, Bill. I think it's something that we've been completely focused on. And you're right, in the spring, we got to rely on the relationships we'd already built, but that's not true here in the fall. And so the way that we're conceptualizing this is we really have gone back to basics of like, how do we ensure that our students have a secure attachment with an adult? And then how do we make sure that we start to build slowly up to, you know, a relationship with another student and then a group of students? And so every single one of our days at Summit begins with a mentor group. And so our students have always had a mentor that stays with them for 4 years. The beginning of their day is with that group, with that mentor. We are very focused on, you know, normally our onboarding is very much about the whole school and all the people in that building that show up on the first day. Well, in the virtual world, that doesn't happen. And you can really sort of slowly peel the onion of the engagement. And so in the first couple of days our students join, their mentor will literally interview each of them for 10 to 15 minutes in the context of their group. We've been practicing as adults how you actually use the features in a virtual experience where you turn everyone's cameras off so you're all focused on one person, and then you use the chat to be resonant and you use it to be supportive. And so we'll start with each individual being seen and part of a group and how they resonate with each other. And then we'll slowly build out from there, using the ability to actually control the experience in the virtual world in a way that we can't in the building. So high level, that's how we're thinking about it.
Excellent. Sean.
Thank you, Diane. I actually took a couple of strategies from you just now, just in listening. I really appreciate that. And I really appreciate this question. I think it's one of the most important questions that we can address at a school where our premier value is relationships. Quite obviously, we did lots of thinking about this. We did do a couple of things that I'll mention that just really, really impacted this in a way that I think was positive. One, we are a school that has always been about relationships, and we have built and maintained and leveraged relationships with our students and with our families in a way that has been extremely, extremely successful. And because of that, we found making this shift, you know, I certainly agree with what Diane said. Like we never intended to be, you know, we're physically distant, but we're not socially distant. Right, we're all in it together with each other. And so one of the first things that we did was we put the pictures of every single student on the wall, and we had all of our teachers take Post-it notes and put their Post-it notes on the pictures of kids who they had the closest relationship with. And from that, we built what we called North Star advisories, right? And so each adult has 4 or 5 kids, and every single morning they do a 15-minute check-in with them. Which is the equivalent of a morning meeting with just 5 kids and you. We put together a whole list of activities that they could do with them every day, all relational, just to make sure that you feel closely checked in. Each student gets 2 to 5 contacts a day from adults in our building, at least 2 from that North Star advisor and 2 to 3 from other folks, right? Parents get 2 to 5 contacts each week, 2 from the advisor and 3 from other folks in the building. And we found that our relationships were stronger. They actually got stronger. We are very concerned about how we move that with these new students. And so we have started these small student-to-student advisories where we're having students who are current with us. We put together a program where they go online and they do an introduction meeting with every new student. And so a new student is in a Zoom room with 5 other students who are current, and they take them through this series of activities and games and conversation about what it means to be a statesman and what does it mean that you're going to be joining the Statesman. And so we're already thinking through, one, a very small, if we can do some groups of 10 kids or less, bringing them on campus for a day at a time, taking them outside, doing activities with them, where returning students get to work with younger students to make sure that they feel like they are a part of a crew and a part of a posse. So we've been thinking a lot about it. We're trying to make sure a third of our engagement with our students, with these young men, will still be in the space of how we build and maintain and leverage relationships.
Excellent. Before I get to Emilio, again, we have a Q&A session, part of the session, which will start in about 10 minutes. So please feel free to put your questions in. Emilio.
Yeah, Sean and Diane really covered this extremely well. So some similarities, I'll focus on trying to add new information. So for us, it was about a shift in mindset. We always preach fortified bell-to-bell instruction from day one. And that has to change a little bit. So the first couple weeks, we're going to hold off on that fortified bell-to-bell instruction to build culture, particularly with the new students coming in. What it looks like. New students to STEM prep, refreshers for our continuing. So that's one thing that's going to look slightly different. The other was doing a lot of preparatory work on training our staff. It was important to us that we not lay anyone off, so we are keeping our staff whole. That being said, their roles and responsibilities and duties can't look the same when they have a site-based type position. So giving those folks training to become mentors, to do personal check-ins with families, and that might be very, very outside of what their normal role was. So making sure the adults are ready to take this on, and onboarding our new teachers as well. So we're relying on teachers to onboard new students into the culture, but they're brand new. So we really are doing a lot of this work with the adults, so that sense of family, so that relational component trickles down to our students. So those are a couple ways that we're doing it, along with a lot of what Diane and Sean said. And I as well learned a lot, and we'll be taking some of those ideas and implementing them too.
Lots of good ideas that I'm going to take back myself. This is really a rich conversation, so thank you. Let's go to what I think is something that I've experienced in the last couple of weeks. My guess is you all have experienced, which is the personal aspect of returning to school in person or in any way, shape, or form in-person contact, and the varying degrees of fear or comfortabilityness around doing that, right? And how are you all navigating what I would say is that very personal decision for many of your team members and families with your own feelings, and how are you setting the tone in your organization around thinking about even small in-person things? I mean, I'm sure you all are also thinking about other ways in which we can do one-on-one in-person contact in some way, or even small groups here and there just to connect. So how are you dealing with that fear in your leadership and also in your organization? And if I can, Emilio, and put you on the spot, why don't we start with you, and then I'll go to Sean, and then we'll have Diane finish this out.
Yeah, this is a great question, Bill. And I think often when we think of people coming back to school, and we need to think about this, right? We think of it from an HR component or from what does employment law say? But I'm going to share something personal. A person very high up in our organization was diagnosed with COVID. And we were thinking of having some small group meetings, particularly for new teachers, because that induction piece is so important into the culture. But when folks at this point within the organization either have personally, and I'd say the majority of our staff here in Los Angeles has personally been impacted by a family member or a loved one being diagnosed with COVID, and when several people within the organization, including at the highest levels, have been diagnosed with COVID, it's a brand new reality. So when that, you try to be empathetic and sympathetic to the fear of others, but when that fear is personal and it impacts you at a very close level, it certainly changes the way you do things. So we, perhaps being prisoners of the moment, are erring on the side of not doing in-person small group or individual student assessments. because of those reasons. Again, very personal and very current. So that's my current thinking around erring on the side of making virtual professional development and virtual instruction as good as it can be, because I think that no matter what, that's going to have to be the cornerstone of what education looks like for this year until we have that vaccine that we're all hoping for.
Thank you
Sean.
so much. Thanks so much, Emilio. I think that something that has been a non-negotiable for us and our team is that a happy teacher makes a happy classroom. A healthy teacher makes a healthy classroom. A mentally stable teacher makes a mentally stable classroom. Whatever's going on inside that adult is going on inside that classroom. Whatever's going on inside leadership is going on inside the adults. And so we have been very lucky in that every single day that our school's been in existence, we start the day with a morning huddle. And that morning huddle focuses on mental health. It focuses on giving folks an opportunity to address what's going on inside them, what's going on inside their families. We are a vision and mission-driven school. We don't have a staff person in our building who would not come to this building tomorrow and be in the presence of all of our kids at any given time. And because of that, it is the responsibility of leaders to make sure that we don't call them into a space where they won't be safe until we have done what we need to do to mitigate harm. And so we have had very close conversations with them every single day. Summer school has given us an opportunity to do PD differently. And so we're doing 2 hours of virtual PD every day before they're going to their summer classes. And it's important to say that our PD has a therapeutic approach. And so we are giving people opportunities to talk about what's going on in their families, small groups, one-on-one, with an accountability partner or within the large group to say, hey, this is what's going on in my family. These are the losses that I'm experiencing. People are reaching out to each other and talking to each other about it. Honestly, I'm going to put everybody on a diet. Like my entire staff has come back 20 to 40 pounds heavier than they left. And so we are making sure that we have a counselor in our building 3 days a week. That counselor has never seen kids. They only see adults. And so that's all gone virtual. We're continuing to make sure that happens. And we're taking what we are hearing from our staff, and we're using that as a way to design how we support them in their energy to come back. Right now, everybody's willing to come back. We've got one person who definitely shouldn't come back because he's extremely vulnerable. But we have been we haven't, I think the mission and vision drive has kept us in a space where anybody on our staff would come back tomorrow if that's what we asked for. But as a leadership team, we've been very, very thoughtful about looking at the data across the nation and making the decision to keep people safe. And I think that the therapeutic approach to PD has been just enormous in making sure that people feel good and that there is mental health support at the adult level, so that when we make this choice, we will know what we have asked folks to do.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Sean. Really appreciate it. And we're going to go to Diane to answer this question, and then we're going to go to the Q&A. So again, if you have questions, please go ahead and put them in the Q&A, and we'll get to those next. Diane.
Thanks. Thanks, Bill. And thanks, Emilio and Sean. Like you guys, I'm learning. And I so appreciate your wisdom on this and want to be additive. So I've got like a million things going through my mind. I'm trying to think about which ones will be most productive for this conversation. So let me share one thing we've done that I think might be surprising to people. It was surprising to all of us. In June, I got together, we do this every year. We spend a week at the end of the year kind of debriefing the year and then launching planning for the next year with all the leadership of the organization. So this is all of our leaders of all of our schools and the leadership of the organization. It's about 70 people. And we, in this moment in time, spent that week doing deep personal work and deep collaborative work that was about who we are as people. And we didn't do any planning for the next year. We didn't talk about, COVID. We didn't do any of that. We literally did our work together as a team. And this is where we started to learn some of the strategies that we could employ that help people seen and heard and felt. And I think that set a tone for then how can we bring our teachers back into that? How can we bring our students back into that? Because we are a team now, and we are having open and frequent conversations about how we're feeling and what we're thinking and making decisions together. And being really honest and transparent and caring with each other because we see each other and we know each other. So I think that's a big thing. Another key feature of that was this tool we're using, which is a self-assessment of are you above the line or below the line? And it comes from a bunch of work from trauma-informed environments, and just helping ourselves self-assess and then helping each other recognize that in ourselves and recognizing who we are and who comes from a more of a place of fear versus not, and how that plays out. And then the last piece I will just share is we are really trying to focus on the present. You know, in a time like this, it's so easy to think about the future and to catastrophize and to worry and to have all these scenarios in your head. And so that's why we really broke down into phases, and we're really sort of chunking this up into short periods of time and focusing on what is it that we know for this period of time, what can we control, how do we apply our values here, and what does that look like, and trying to stay out of the big future thinking seems to be really helpful for people's for controlling fear.
Thanks, Diane. At the risk of putting you on the spot, I'm sure there's a lot of people sitting here going, what is that tool? What is what's the name of that tool that you use? Do you have that on the top of your head?
Sure. I'm happy to share it. The version that we've used was graciously shared with us from a group called the Enneagram Prism Project, and they do amazing work with incarcerated folks, and were very generous in partnering with us on the work that we did as a team. And so I'm happy to gather it and share it with the group.
Thank you. That'd be great. Well, good. Well, let's jump into some Q&A from all of you. And I will direct the question to one of the panelists, and then other panelists feel free to jump in if you want to add on. And I will have that awkward pause for a minute to see if people are going to jump in, and then if not, we will move on to the next question. So bear with me in those awkward pauses. Diane, I'm going to ask you this question to start. It's a good question. It's going to wade into a little bit of the world of, I guess, popular culture around this right now, and some of the debates going on in our families and communities. And it's around the concept of pods. And the question reads this: how might public charters support their families in creating public charter pods while ensuring access and equity for high need populations? And so I would be curious, Diane, A, what do you think of this concept of pods? And then B, what role do you think we as charter organizations have in them or not?
Yeah, Bill. So I might be in an interesting position because our students are grades 6 through 12. So we're not dealing with as many of the custodial issues that more elementary focused folks are. And so, given our experience in the spring, we were able to navigate our students working from home for the most part and give really intensified supports for students who were struggling. So we're less focused on pods for custodial care for our own students. And like I said, we're offering a full program for our own kids. So, but we do have a mission to support schools and students across the country, as you know. And so one thing we are working on potentially is how can we put together the resources that Summit has and package them for families that will not have educators who are really supporting the students during the day. Their custodial care might be given by others. And how could we make that usable for them so kids have really rich environments? And so we're working on a plan to try to do that. Our focus is making all of that free to anyone and everyone. So we are deeply focused on equity and think everyone should have access to this. And so that's where Summit's energy is going right now. And we feel like we could put something together to support families, maybe with as low as 4th graders through 12th grade. And And that's how we are thinking about it.
All right, I'm going to take it that Emilio and Sean are going to leave that one alone. Let's jump into this question. And Sean, again, why don't you start with this? And then if Diane and Emilio want to jump on, that would be great. And I send this to you, Sean, because it sounds like, as we have done in Denver, unfortunately, we just kind of shifted to this remote focus. And so you had probably beautiful plans for hybrid or some in-person approach. And the question really is about what are the hybrid plans? And again, I don't want you to go through all the details, but high level, what were you thinking? And I might add to that question, there seems to be a little bit of debate going on around, is this even possible? And can it be done well? So love you to pick that strand up.
I think it's a really important question. We have struggled across several cohorts of leaders in this city and some across the nation. I have the benefit of being a part of several national cohorts, and the whole notion of these hybrids keeping us any safer than we want. I mean, it's a struggle because it required pods as well. And so we were thinking of plans that would mean you'd come in on an A day or a B day. You'd come in on Monday and Tuesday, but you wouldn't come in on Thursday and Friday. Other kids would come in on Thursday and Friday. Wednesday would be a deep clean of the building. We did one day you'll come in on Monday, or somebody will come in on Tuesday. Someone will come in on Thursday, Friday. Wednesday will be a deep clean for the building. And so the number of different options around a hybrid were amazing. All of them had to come with a full virtual option as well. So we were saying, okay, let's bifurcate our staff and create a staff that is all virtual, and they will take care of making sure that when kids are not in school, the virtual thing is set up and we'll have a staff that's in. But then we didn't have enough staff to make sure that you could spread kids out and make sure you had pods of 10, 12 people or less. And then you couldn't have people cross-contaminate a pod by having a teacher who teaches math going to another class, because you can't do it. So then you're going to videotape all the classes and then send that into the class, but then the special education person has to come in and they would be cross-contaminating. So how many times could the special education? And so it turned into just like, oh my God. And then working with someone who was a specialist, they were telling me, Sean, your kids are going to come on the bus. You just cross-contaminated every single pod. Like, there's no way to do this without. And so it was the number of versions for how this thing could play out, and the reality of whether or not those versions actually did create safety was an issue. And so, yeah, like everybody else across the nation, we had seen a whole bunch of really sophisticated, brilliant people spend a lot of time building around this. And we're very worried that in the end, if it is indeed true that this disease can transmit in the way that it can, we would have been in a little bit of trouble.
Bill, the one thing I would add, when Sean was going through all of those problems, that's definitely probably the voice we all have in our head. So I related very much to the difficulty of making hybrid work. The one thing I'll add is that we do have a hybrid plan, and we've done is that when we do go to that hybrid plan, and our estimation is when and if we do that, about 1/3 of our kids will come to school 1 to 2 days a week during the hybrid plan. The other 2/3 will elect to continue with distance learning, with virtual learning, even if we offer the possibility of coming in 1 to 2 times a week. Our original plans for hybrid meant that if the in-person, there would be direct instruction and it would drive how students are learning. We really backed off of that. And if we do open with a hybrid plan where kids are coming to school, we're going to use that much more for socialization, so kids have access to other students of their age. But the reality is that when we go to hybrid, it's probably much more likely that we go back to all distance learning before we go to school as we knew it, with everyone coming in. And that was a big mind shift. When we started doing hybrid learning, we kind of had these aspirations that in-person would be great, but the reality is distance learning is going to be our cornerstone. We have to do that really, really well. And then again, if they are able to come in, about a third of them, that's going to be for relationship building, socialization.
Wow, Sean, I want to capture that video of that little, I don't know what it was. I don't want to call it a rant, but it was really good. And I'm sure it captured a lot of our feelings about this hybrid school thing. I have a release of tension after watching you so articulately share that little blurb. So thanks for that. Let's go to a question that's, maybe a little less emotional, but I think a lot of people are continuing, and I see this in the Q&A, wondering how we really connect with our communities. And I guess I'd love to hear anybody who has, and I'll start with you, Emilio, any thoughts around social media, around technology solutions, aside from Zoom and all the other ones that you have thought about around staying connected with the 2020 student who may be on all sorts of other platforms other than Zoom, and do we need to use those in some way? So I'll start with you, Emilio, and then Diane and Sean, feel free to jump in.
Yeah, I think this looks different. We're a K-12, right? So the reality is our middle and high school students are already connecting. They already have their groups set up. They're on Snapchat. They're on TikToks. They're talking about this. And I don't know if it's as much of us creating a platform where they come in and they connect with the school as it is with key teachers, key counselors reaching out in the space that they're comfortable and kind of observing and learning what kids are doing. Obviously, we're disseminating information, and our parents very much stay connected with Facebook and those kinds of platforms. For us, the way to create this culture, the way to create this connectiveness and relationship is by just being dogged around who we are and what we stand for. And that is STEM education being the way that we break down inequity in society. And the more we can open up the field of STEM to students who have been locked out of it, the more that we are doing that. Because really there's, and Diane mentioned this when I talked to her previously, there's two pandemics. We have the pandemic of COVID, and we have the pandemic of what's happening with the reckoning around social justice and certain populations in this country not being treated fairly for a number of years. And focusing in on that equity through STEM education is kind of what binds us. It's what makes STEM prep. It's what makes a STEM prep parent a STEM prep parent, a student in our organization. So whatever platform we're using, we're really, really focused on who we are and what we do and why we do it.
Bill, maybe I would just add, I don't think that I can emphasize enough the importance of how we launch every day in these mentor groups with what we call the morning routine. And it starts with, again, these are practices, these are trauma-informed practices, these are practices about building community. It starts with a pleasantry, which is a joyful experience, which sometimes we forget in the virtual world. We're so focused on academics, we forget kids aren't in hallways together. They're not in the building together. And so we need to build in time for joy. And so we start there with that, and then we move into a mindfulness activity to get everyone grounded, and then a goal setting activity, and this routine as a mentor group that then once a week is doing a community circle where they really get to know each other. That becomes this place where the kids go to be connected and to be in a small community that feels safe. And I'll just give you one story of the power of this. Late last spring, there's so many stories, but this one gets me every time. One of our students' dad was sick with COVID and had to be taken to the hospital. And as the paramedics were at her home taking her dad away, where did she go but online to her mentor group? And she sat with her mentor group online, totally connected, and they were with her, if not physically, they were with her as her dad was taken away. to the hospital in one of the most traumatic moments of her life. And that is what is still possible even in this virtual world if you really invest and figure out ways to not do it exactly the way we do it in the building, but to get to the same effect.
We're running out of time, and I will just say this. Thank you so much, Diane. It is not what is possible. Flat out, it is what we have to do. We will be judged as a community based on whether or not we were able to do that. This is a crisis. It's not a period of time. It's not a change in program. It's a crisis. And families are hurting. The people who we love and serve need us to do this. This thing that she just described, it has to happen. It has to be the thing that we do first to make sure that when we come back together, we're able to get back to work and back to what we were, better than we were, as quickly as possible.
Wow, what a powerful way to end this time together. And I would add to what the panelists said at the end here, which is just we are in a crisis. We're in a health pandemic for the last 5 months. We're in a racial justice crisis that's been going on for 400 years. And this is a moment in time when I think we have both a huge challenge in front of us and an enormous opportunity to reach and truly love and connect and help our students, ourselves, and our families become the best versions of themselves. And so it's truly an extraordinary time. I hope you have found some useful tips. I hope you walk away from this session with a couple things that will help you serve your students and families better. It's been an honor to be on this panel with these three amazing leaders. I could do this all afternoon, as I'm sure you could. And again, thank you for coming, and appreciate you attending, and I wish you the best in the coming year.